West Consolidated Zoning Board to order. Can we take a roll, please?
Jeff Huff is absent. Craig Connell,
Here.
John DeGran,
Here.
Terry Atwell,
On Zoom.
Donna Getzman,
On Zoom.
Bob Paulson,
Present.
Roger Spears.
Present.
Thank you. We have quorum, and I will go ahead and read the hybrid statement. This meeting is now being recorded in the board hearing room with zoning board members attending in person. There is an option for virtual attendance on Zoom webinar. For Zoom attendees wishing to speak, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom app at the start of the agenda item on which you desire to comment. Comments will be received from in-person attendees first, followed by Zoom participants. When it's your turn to speak, the moderator will recognize you by name or phone number used to join the Zoom webinar, and your microphone will be unmuted. Please state your name and the city and state where you reside for the record, followed by your comments. All public speakers will be limited to 3 minutes unless the chair designates a different time period. If you have trouble with Zoom, please call 913-715-9666. Board members, staff, and presenters, please state your name every time you begin talking, and please speak into the microphones so that people attending via Zoom can hear you, and the comments can be transcribed for the record. This is a public meeting, and we are presenting live and recording the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any additions or changes to the proposed agenda tonight?
None. Nope.
All right. Anybody on the board need to disclose conflicts of interest this month?
Hey, this is Terry Atwell. I don't believe it falls under a conflict of interest, but I'm going to abstain from items B and C because both of those plats are coming from Allen Brandon Drews.
Okay. And any disclosure of external contacts or discussions from the board? Okay. Well, the minutes of the meeting from January 15th, are there any comments or can we have a motion to approve those?
I move we approve. Roger Spears, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any, okay, no opposed. Sean, you have some reports for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Sean Penley, County Planning Staff. For Board of County Commissioners actions, if you recall at the last meeting for the zoning board in January, you considered a preliminary development plan for Dream Aviation or Dream Air for a new terminal building and 2 hangars at New Century Air Center. This board did recommend approval of that preliminary development plan. Board of County Commissioners approved that application on February 13th. There will be a final development plan submitted for that same property with the same development, and we anticipate that to be submitted later this month. So that will be back before this board with a final development plan, probably in April. So that's it for Board of County Commissioners actions. For Planning Commission actions, our next meeting is next week on February 25th. The Planning Commission will meet. For that meeting, we have scheduled a year-end review for 2024, reviewing all the applications that have been considered by all of the zoning boards and the Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals and Airport Commission. And then we'll also be considering upcoming projects for 2025. And we have a training session topic for rural planning. That concludes the board reports. Happy to answer any questions.
Was there anything else, Sean, you said earlier that you?
Nothing now, but at the end of the meeting, I'll make a couple of announcements.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right, now we proceed to the business before the board. Item A is application number W24-435-CUP, conditional use permit, I-35 between 175th and 183rd.
Good evening, Zoe Brown, Planning. This case is for a conditional use permit renewal for 2 billboards. The subject property is located on Cedar Niles Road, fronting onto I-35. The current zoning is PEC 3, and the current land use is agricultural, with the exception of the 2 billboards. The applicant is requesting a 20-year CUP renewal for the 2 signs. Here's an aerial view of the property with the 2 signs circled in red. The signs meet the performance standards for billboard signs other than the setbacks from the right-of-way, the highway right-of-way. In October 2024, the applicant began the process of applying for a conditional use permit renewal for the billboards. And during that review process, staff concluded that the 2 billboards built in 2014 do not meet the required 35-foot setback from the highway right-of-way. The approved billboards were constructed in accordance with the approved CUP site plan. However, the approved site plan measures the setbacks from the sign post rather than the sign structure itself. So a variance was needed to remedy the setback issue before granting a CUP renewal. Planning staff recommended approval for the setback variance, and the Board of Zoning Appeals voted to approve the variance on January 29th. The application meets the golden criteria and is consistent with the zoning and uses of the nearby properties and the character of the neighborhood. The area is agricultural and agricultural and residential to the southeast and urban to the northwest. The signs are compatible with the commercial uses to the north. There's no proposed changes to the existing signs, and there have been no detrimental effects to nearby properties in the past 10 years. Staff recommends approval of the application subject to the stipulations in the report, and here's the recommended motion.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Zoe from the board?
None.
Terry, Donna, nothing? No questions?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Is the applicant here? Do they want to say anything or speak? Okay. Any questions of the applicant? Okay.
All right.
Any questions or comment just amongst the board?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Bob Paulson, I move to approve application number W 24-435-CUP for a conditional use permit with a 20-year term to allow for the continued use of 2 outdoor advertising sign structures, subject to the stipulations in the report.
Before we take a second, I neglected to ask if there's any public comment on this
Sorry,
application.
do we have any?
Anybody on Zoom either, but other sides?
We do, but they have not raised their hand.
Okay. All right.
Sorry,
Thank you. No problem.
do I need to do it again?
No. You did.
Roger Spears, I'll second.
Go ahead.
Okay. Give me a roll call vote, please.
Rick Connell,
Aye.
Terry Atwell,
Aye.
John DeGran,
Aye.
Donna Getzman,
Aye.
Bob Paulson,
Aye.
Roger Spears.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Next,
Mr. Chairman, we'll announce too for that application will be considered by the Board of County Commissioners on March 27th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that'll be considered for final action by the board on March 27th at 9:30 a.m. here in this board hearing room. Thank you.
thank you. Item B, application number W 25-453-FP, final plat 9945 Waverly Road. Zoe, that's you again, okay?
Yes, it is. This application is for a 1-lot replat. The subject property is located at 9945 Waverly Road on 10 acres and has rural zoning. There's a house and accessory structure on the property. Here is an aerial view of the site. The applicant is proposing to remove the limits of no access on Lot 1 to allow for a driveway onto Waverly Road, which is a Carnap Type 1 road. The minimum street frontage per driveway for a Type 1 arterial is 330 feet, and the application meets this criteria. The original plat for this property was approved in 2017, and at the time of the original plat approval, the regulations prohibited driveway access onto arterial roads, which is why the limits of no access were marked on the west side of Lot 1. However, the regulations were later amended to allow access onto arterial roads as long as the lot has adequate road frontage and is zoned RUR. The application meets the minimum infrastructure requirements, and Public Works stated no concerns with site distance for the driveway. And staff recommends approval of the replat subject to the stipulations in the report. And here's the recommended motion, and the applicant is here as well if you have any questions.
All right, first, do we have any questions of Zoe? Anybody? And does the applicant want to say anything? No. All right. Any questions from the board for the applicant? No. All right, any public comment on this item? No hands raised?
No hands raised.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion then.
Roger Spears, I move to approve application number W25-453-FP, LE, for final plat for Lewis Farms 2, a replat of Lot 1, subject to the stipulations in the report for the reasons set forth in the staff report.
John DeGrand, I'll second.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Craig Connell,
Aye.
Terry Atwell,
I'll abstain.
John DeGran,
Aye.
Donna Getzman,
Aye.
Bob Paulson,
Aye.
Roger Spears.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, so that motion passes.
And this application will also go to the March 27th meeting at 9:30 in the board hearing room here.
Item C. Application number W25-454-PP and W25-455-FP, preliminary and final plat, 39350 West 183rd Street. And you have that application.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Diane Wickland, Planning Department. So for this item, the applicant is Rick Marshall, and landowners are Seth and Katie Salmons. The property is located at the northwest corner of 183rd Street, and Evening Star Road is shown on the vicinity map here on the screen. The property has the rural district zoning, and there is a single-family residence and detached accessory structures, and the site size is 25 acres. So the applicant is proposing to plat this 25-acre parcel into 2 residential lots to be known as Summons Farm Plat. Lot 1 will be 15 acres in size, and Lot 2 will be 10 acres in size. Proposed Lot 1 has an existing single-family residence and accessory buildings and takes access from 183rd Street. And proposed Lot 2 is vacant. It'll be a corner lot, and it has frontage on and can take access from either 183rd Street or Evening Star Road. Both proposed lots also comply with the minimum street frontage requirements per the Carnot plan. And I'll just kind of go over a couple of graphics here real quick. So this is an aerial view just of the surrounding area. And the subject property is outlined in blue. And then here is just kind of a zoomed in aerial view of the subject property. You can see the outbuildings there and the single family home. Here's a copy of the preliminary plat. And then this is a copy of the final plat document. So the minimum infrastructure requirements were reviewed as well. And just to note that a site distance study was submitted by the applicant and accepted by the County Public Works Department, which shows that there is an area for a proposed driveway entrance on Lot 2 that would meet the site distance requirements. Proposed Lot 1 already has an existing driveway entrance to the house. And then the property is also served by Water District 7. And there is a fire hydrant located at 183rd Street and Evening Star Road. And so both Water 7 District and the building official have stated that fire flow is available and sufficient for both lots, and no new fire hydrants are required. So the proposed plat does meet the minimum infrastructure requirements. In regard to the rural comprehensive plan, this property is located in the rural traditional policy area, which has a density of one dwelling per 10 acres. And so this proposed density with 2 lots on 25 acres is in keeping with the rural comprehensive plan in that density recommendation. There's also a plat exception request, as you saw in the staff report for this. So the regulations do require that lots within subdivisions that have the rural district zoning, that the lot depth to width ratio shall not exceed 4:1 or be less than 1:1. And so the applicant is requesting a plat exception for proposed lot 1, which is the one that has the house and outbuildings on it. So it is, its depth to width ratio will be 0.66 to 1. Which is less than that 1:1 ratio. So what it really means is that the lot is more wide than deep, is really all that means. And so there's a few criteria that the regulations have us review and look at when we look at a plat exception. And so I'll state just a couple of those real quick. So one is that the parcel this lot configuration is compatible with the surrounding rural character of the area. And it is in kind of keeping with the various lot sizes and configurations that are found in the surrounding area. And then also that the plat exception will not be contrary to the public interest because this lot configuration is close enough to the standard where that depth is still significant and does not create in it highly irregular shaped lot. And so therefore, planning staff is recommending approval of that requested plat exception and also recommending approval of the preliminary and final plats with the stipulations that are listed on page 9 and 10 of the staff report. And the reason for the recommendation of approval is that because the plats do comply with the zoning and subdivision regulations, except for that requested plat exception. And then also on page 10 and on one of the slides here is a proposed motion for the board's reference. And with that, I'm available for questions, and the applicant is also present tonight.
I have one. Diane, can you flip back to the page that showed the plat that showed the structures on it? That one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 160 feet. Okay. Answered that question. Thank you.
I have a question though, Diane, it's Craig Connell. There's a stream buffer, it appears in lot 2 in the middle of the lot. Is that going to prevent, is that a
That's correct.
water
That
floodplain
kind of
thing
this-
issue, or is that?
So actually, the floodplain areas on the property is right here on lot 1, kind of on that west side of lot 1. And then the stream buffer over here, you're correct, kind of dissects that lot too. So showing that stream buffer zone is a requirement of the kind of the APWA requirements. But there is also, sufficient space on either side of that stream buffer for a home and a septic system. In addition, you can kind of see there could be a driveway location either here, kind of where my arrow is, or kind of way up here that still meets the side distance requirements and that spacing from the intersection.
Okay, so the stream buffer definition doesn't prevent building on
No.
that space?
No.
Okay,
Yeah, so you can't, they cannot build in that stream buffer, but there's definitely enough lot area on either side of that stream buffer to meet setback requirements and put a septic location system there.
thank you.
Roger Spears, that makes me ask the question, the stream buffer is not an active waterway, right? It's just a drainage area that would support natural drainage.
That's correct. And then kind of also it's to kind of preserve that area along that drainage area and the creeks so that, there's no kind of disturbance or activity that can affect the water quality.
Right, but it's not a floodplain because it's
No.
not an active waterway.
That's correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And you can actually see, so the floodplain here on this aerial view, this blue shaded area over here on the west there, that's the floodplain area.
Mhm.
And then you can pretty clearly see here where my mouse is. So that kind of creek area, that's kind of the shape of that stream buffer zone.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Diane, okay. Is the applicant here? Did you want to say anything? Okay. Any question of the applicant from the board? Nothing on Zoom, Elizabeth? Okay.
None.
Any public comments on this item? No hands raised on Zoom? Okay. All right. We have a motion.
John DeGrand, I move that the board approve applications number W25-454-PP and W25-455-FP for preliminary and final plat for 2 residential lots to be known as Solomon's Farm Plat for the reasons and subject to the stipulations recommended by staff and set forth in the staff report, and which includes the plat exception for the lot depth to width ratio requirement for proposed lot 1.
Bob Paulson, I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Craig Connell,
Aye.
Harry Atwell,
I'll abstain.
John DeGran,
Aye.
Donna Getzman,
Aye.
Bob Paulson,
Aye.
Roger Spears.
Aye.
Aye, there's 5 votes in favor, so that motion passes.
Thank you. Yes, and Chairman, so this application will also go to the Board of County Commissioners on March 27th, 9:30 a.m. Here in this building, 3rd floor, 111 South Cherry. Thank you.
Next item, item D, application number W24-449-CUP and W25-456-CUP. Conditional use permits, 12240 Moonlight Road.
Thank you. Karen Miller with the Planning Department. This subject property is located on the west side of Moonlight Road between 119th Street and 27th Street. Here's an aerial view of the property. It's a 10-acre parcel in the rural zoning district. And then the lower aerial shows a closer look at the structures on the property, which are the applicant's single-family home, a detached accessory building for personal storage. This doesn't have anything to do with the proposed kennel. And then attached via a breezeway is the kennel building with an outdoor exercise area to the north and to the west of the kennel building. So kind of the first thing I'll do is I'll go over what a Savannah cat is and what is a serval cat, because that's the whole purpose of these 2 conditional use permits is to establish a breeding operation for for Savannah cats. So this is a visual representation of a Savannah cat's lineage. The Savannah cat is a breed of hybrid cat developed from crossing an African serval cat with a domestic cat. This hybridization typically produces large and lean offspring with the serval's characteristic large ears and brown spotted coats. Here is the applicant's African serval currently residing on the property. Servals are a species of wildcat generally found within the savanna zone of Africa. They're medium-sized cats. They have an average weight of 29 pounds. They have the lean body, long legs, spotted coat, and big ears, and they can live up to 20 years or more in captivity. So the operation of the breeding program requires 2 conditional use permits, which are a CUP for an exotic animal, which is the serval cat, since it's a wild animal, not typically kept domestically, and then a conditional use permit to keep 4 or more domestic cats, that's considered a type of kennel. Anything on this size of property that has 4 or more adult cats or dogs is considered a kennel. This will be a private kennel. There won't be any outside training of people's animals or boarding or anything like that. And so we're here today because the applicant proposes to amend her existing 2 conditional use permits to allow 2 serval cats instead of 1 and to allow 20 domestic cats instead of 15. And that is to also include her 2 dogs as pets. If approved, the cages within the kennel building would be configured to accommodate the additional serval and domestic cats. The building would not be enlarged and would not require a building permit. Here's a picture of the applicant's house on the left and kennel building on the right. If the requested revisions are approved, the breeding operation would continue to operate within this kennel building. The kennel building is about 30 by 40 feet. It's constructed in the same style as the applicant's home, and it's very well screened from surrounding properties by the 2 other buildings on the site, the detached garage and the residence house, and then rows of evergreen trees, in addition to decorative shrubs and grasses. The kennel houses the serval and domestic cats with access to the outdoor enclosure and exercise area. And here's an aerial view of the kennel building and outdoor enclosure. And you can see that there's double fencing around the perimeter. And also, you can see how the outdoor enclosure is completely enclosed overhead. And here's another close-up view of the outdoor enclosure. You can see the double fencing, and then around the foundation, there's concrete and also a stone foundation wall. And that's designed to prevent the cats from digging underneath the fence. So the cats have wire fencing on the top, on the sides, and then they have the concrete and foundation to prevent digging. And so here's the interior of the kennel building, and here you can see the adjustable cage system that would be reconfigured if the request is approved to accommodate more cats. So I have a few just general comments. The applicant is licensed by the USDA as a commercial breeder and is subject to random inspections. As part of the current conditional use permit amendments, staff has again reviewed the infrastructure serving the site and found it to be suitable for keeping the 2 serval cats in the private kennel. County staff has not received complaints regarding the activity, and the site is in compliance with the current approved conditional use permit stipulations. During a recent visit, staff observed that the existing serval residing on the property is declawed and collared with a GPS for continuous monitoring per the stipulations of the CUP, and that recommendation has been revised to include both serval cats. There have been no reported issues or incidents with the serval escaping the enclosure or getting loose. The indoor and outdoor cat enclosures are in good repair and well maintained. The applicant is requesting a 10-year term, which is consistent with the previously approved term. Staff has a letter of support for this application from the owner of the property immediately to the south. There's a CUP history with this site. In 2018, the Board of County Commissioners approved conditional use permits for the keeping of one exotic animal, which is the serval, on the property, and then a private kennel to keep the 2 dogs and up to 15 domestic cats. That first CUP was granted a term of 3 years to let the applicant establish the breeding program, to build the buildings, and to see if there were any sort of unintended consequences. So then in 2020, the applicant came back for a renewal, and at that time, they were renewed for an additional 10 years after a review of the operation and determination by the Board of County Commissioners that the breeding operation did not have any unanticipated issues or detrimental effects to nearby properties over that previous 3-year term. So these 2 CUPs are current, and they will expire in 2030. So in the event that the applicant's current request today is not approved, she can continue the Savannah cat breeding operation until the end of this term, which would be 2030, just so you know. So I'm finished with the background information. Now I'll move to staff's recommendation. Planning staff recommends approval of these 2 requested amendments to allow 2 instead of 1 servals and 20 instead of 15 domestic cats on the property, subject to stipulations. The full land use analysis is contained within the staff report. Here are some graphics related to this land use review. Here's a zoning map of nearby properties. The subject property is in a large area of rural zoning with agricultural uses and single-family homes on large lots. And the applicant's property is one of these large lots. She's on 10 acres. There are generous distances between the kennel and the surrounding homes. The closest home is 350 feet from the kennel, and this is the property in which the owner submitted a letter of support. And planning staff has not heard from any other member of the public regarding this application. Here is the applicant's residence. It's located 500 feet from Moonlight Road, so it is well set off from the road. Here's the well-established screening. This is the front of the kennel building, and so there's good screening for the outdoor enclosure on the east side, and then also on the north side of the building. Here's the enclosure, here's the kennel building, and this driveway is on the next door property. So very well screened and very good landscaping. I'll just go over a little bit more of the recommendation. So planning recommends approval of the CUP amendment to allow the operation of a kennel subject to stipulations. These stipulations are very closely written in the staff report, but a summary is that it would limit the number of domestic cats to 20. There would be a term of 10 years, and requirements would include keeping the cats inside the house, the kennel building, or the exercise area, to not use the kennel for public boarding or public training, and to keep the kennel clean and remove animal waste from the property, which may include depositing waste into the applicant's trash. That is allowed by the regulations. So some of the reasons to approve the kennel include that the requested changes to the kennel use would not be discernible from abutting properties or the street. The addition of 5 domestic cats to the private kennel operated in accordance with the stipulations would not have detrimental effects to the nearby properties, and little would be gained by denying the request to allow keeping 20 instead of 15 domestic cats within the kennel building. And if the request is denied, the applicant will be allowed to continue the uses approved with the previous CUP. And then, so that's the details for the kennel. The details for the exotic animal CUP would be to allow the amendment to allow keeping of 2 servals instead of 1. The list of stipulations summarized include 2 servals allowed on the property as pets and for commercial breeding purposes in conjunction with owner occupancy of the residence on the property. The servals shall be confined to the kennel building and attached outdoor enclosure, a term of 10 years. Both servals shall be declawed by a veterinarian, well, the new one, and then each serval shall continuously wear a GPS collar that is continuously working and monitored at all times. And so a summary of the stipulation of the reasons would be that there have been no unanticipated issues and impact during the previous CUP, the keeping of 2 servals in a manner allowed by the stipulations is compatible with the rural character. In addition to a second serval in accordance with the proposed development plan and stipulations that will not require exterior alteration of the kennel building. So those are just a summary of some of the main reasons. So with that, I'll conclude my comments, and I've put up a suggested motion if the board cares to use it. The applicant is here today. She's not planning a presentation, but is here to answer comments or questions.
Thank you, Karen. Does the board have any questions of Karen?
Do I have any?
All right. The applicant don't want to say anything, but will you answer questions? Okay, can you come to the microphone, please? And state your name and address.
Melissa Morris, 12240 North Moonlight Road, Olathe, Kansas, 66061.
Questions from the board? I have 2 if nobody else does. Okay, so the second male serval cat, that's just to improve the breeding process or get more kittens, basically?
Yeah, so the servals, they're extremely picky, like so picky it's frustrating in the sense that, like, right now I have 15 females, all of them for my 1 serval, and he likes 2 or 3 of them. And you could put, 10 girls with him, and all he does is cuddle and groom and end up in the friend zone because they're extremely picky. Same thing in the wild. They're a solitary animal. They live alone. And when a girl comes in heat, she'll get bred one time and run off. So they're not very prolific. They don't do that sort of thing like a lion. So anyway, having a second serval would provide another opportunity to maybe have him not be as picky or like some of the girls that he doesn't like, because it often takes my serval about 2 years to accept a new female, in the sense that he'll snuggle and cuddle with them, but not necessarily try to breed them until after a couple of years, which is why it's at this point I've debated for the last couple of years to get another serval, because it is a big commitment, and it is something that I'm like, do I want to take a next step in this direction? Because they're very expensive to feed, because you have to feed them properly. Otherwise, if you feed them junk food, it literally will kill them. Like, they could jump off a shelf and their back will snap in half because their bones aren't strong enough. And so like he eats whole prey like quail and chicks and mice, and it's expensive. So anyway, long story short, I take pride in feeding them really well. My mom always says, your cats eat better than your kids, and which is not necessarily true, but they do eat really well because they eat like they eat like a raw diet, and then they eat the whole chicks and stuff. Anyway, so I've debated for a couple of years now to add a second serval because most of my friends that do breed the Savannahs have at least 2 servals for that reason. And then also one of the things I've learned is that one female may not be compatible with one serval, but with a different serval, she is compatible. And so more than half the females you pair with a serval cannot carry the serval gene. So you spend all these years growing one out. He finally does the deed and you don't get babies because she's not compatible with him. So, but you could put her with a normal Savannah stud and she'll have a healthy litter of kittens. So having 2 servals gives you a better opportunity to make the gene pool more compatible. So, I've been doing this for 10 years now, and my husband's like, how much longer are you gonna do this? And I'm like, oh, I know I love them. So I don't know. And this is my family and my 3 girls, they help. They do all the cat chores in the morning, kind of like a cow farm, but they do all the feeding and the litter and all that stuff. And then my friend Carla, she comes a couple days a week to clean the cat house. And it's a big family affair, more or less. So I don't know if that answered everything.
Sure. My second question is around those, I guess, Savannah cat then. Is that a house cat?
Yeah.
I mean, people buy those for house cats?
Absolutely. Yep. So that's why I produce them, is to have the option, because servals are known as pets, and a lot of the states, people can own the serval as a pet, and a lot of people do, but they don't make as good of a house pet because even when they're spayed or neutered, the serval often still sprays because it is the wild cat, whereas the Savannah, being the hybrid, definitely has much better litter habits. In fact, most of them are 100% litter trained with no litter issues. But even with like a regular domestic cat, you can still have issues because cats are cats. But yes, the Savannah makes a much better house pet with the exotic look, but the behavior of a dog. So that's why the Savannah is so super fun, because they are a dog in a cat body, but looks like a cheetah. So.
Has any of your neighbors ever said anything to you about or complained or?
No, they love it. They're like, when can we come over and play with babies? So if
Okay.
anything, it's the opposite. They're like, hello, when can we come play? And they do. I let them over. In fact, anybody that has any kind of concerns, like, more than happy to have you come to my home and see them. Karen got to come meet Cairo, and he's so sweet. Every family that comes and picks up a kitten, which isn't tons because most of the time my friend Carla delivers them for me, but he is yet to meet a stranger. Like, my serval walks up and he'll wrap his arm around you and lick you and like cuddle you. He's so sweet. So he's not, even though he's technically a wild cat, he doesn't know it. In fact, a lot of these little girls, they chase him and he takes off running. He's scared to death of them. He's hilarious. He cracks me up. So a lot of people, they had this notion of like, oh my, it's an exotic cat. It must be scary. It must be aggressive. And completely opposite. In fact, in the wild, when a serval is confronted by danger, they actually take off running. They will not stay and fight. Whereas like lion, tigers, cougars, they're going to be in it for the death. And servals are like, I'm out. And I 100% see that with mine. Like, in fact, I'll go over there with my slushy coat, like a coat that makes the noise. He'll freak out, like, oh, what are you wearing? And he'll like kind of back up. I'm like, Cairo, it's me. And he'll still like be scared. I take my coat off and he's like, oh, it's you. Like, he's hilarious. Like, they just get scared and they just take off running. So they're not, and that's why the Savannah makes such a great pet, because they're a sweet animal. Like, they're far nicer than regular cats, because I don't really like cats, but I love the Savannahs because Savannahs are super sweet, because most cats don't really care about you. They don't need your help. They just want to eat and be cute. So anyway, I can talk about the cats all day long. I'm like, you ask me questions, I will tell you.
Any other questions from the board?
I do. Bob Paulson, you're not passionate about these at all. are you?
No, can you tell?
I
do not
couldn't
like
tell. I wasn't. So kind of on the downside, kind of, what's the life expectancy of your
Of the Savannahs or the
Yeah.
serval?
the serval?
The servals, I think they live, 15 to 20 years roughly.
Okay.
And the Savannahs as well, about 15, 20 years. Most of them are on the 20-year side if they're taken care of.
So have you had the same male for 10 years?
No, he will be 7 in May. So he's still kind of younger. That was another reason why I thought, well, he's only 7, and they often stop breeding around like 15 years because their legs are they get bored of it. And so that way, if I stagger it, then I at least have a younger boy to kind of pick up where he might not
That
want to do the job.
makes total sense.
Yeah.
I had another one, but I can't remember what it was now. So I hope my wife doesn't read you. Or we'll be over
You
next
might
week.
be over.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, Terry or Donna?
None.
Okay.
Uh,
All right.
no, not really. I guess if I did have one, I'd ask her why she's only asking for a 10-year CUP instead of a 15 or 20, because I feel like her track record is immaculate. And if you've ever been by her place, it is stunning. So I'll just be upfront. With the life expectancy of them being at 20 years, I think, and I'll talk to the board, but I'm kind of in favor of upping that years. But I would just be curious why she only asked for 10.
Thank you. I completely appreciate that. And I agree with you. I would love to do a 20. I guess I was just a little kind of scared because the first time I tried to apply for a permit, I did my due diligence and knocked on every single door that was going to get a letter to introduce myself. And there was this one person that I never got a hold of because they were like the 3 times we went, they were never there. And of course, that one particular person showed up to the hearing very upset because he was scared for his cattle and things like that. And, it's about education, right? We have to educate what we don't know, we fear, that sort of thing. So anyway, I guess I was just scared to like ask for more because I don't want to like offend a neighbor or, I don't know, be denied. So I guess the standard term is normally 10 years. So I just stuck with the 10 years, but I would love a 20 years. So if we want to move for a 20-year, that would be amazing because I probably will be doing this 20 years from now.
Bob Paulson again. Kind of tying on to what Terry had just mentioned, I think it would be an easy stretch to give her 15. She's still got 10 or 5 left on her existing. Tack her other 10 on top. I think that would not be out of ordinary.
It's Craig Connell. So I guess it may be a question for Sean, but if we were to do something like that, would we need to should we do a re-notification of the neighbors since we're changing the term like that, or if we were to do that?
Sean Penley, planning staff. No, certainly the board can recommend a shorter or longer term for the CUP based on certain circumstances and whatever the recommendation is. You certainly have that prerogative. I would ask Karen if she could speak to one point about the term. It is a good point to mention the timing of this in relation to the current CUP and making sure this syncs up with whatever the applicant would request. But certainly, yes, the board can recommend a longer term if you feel it's appropriate, and you could recommend whatever that is with the consensus of the board, whatever that may be. But it may help too if we can have Karen speak to the timing of the current CUP. That may be helpful just as a reminder what we had in terms of how long is the current CUP.
So there have been 2 previous CUPs. The first one was 3 years, and this current one was a 10-year term, which is the standard term. So that's the default term that staff always recommends on a CUP unless we have other circumstances. This was approved in 2020. It will come up again in 2030. So if this request is approved, we would rescind the previous CUP and we would just write it for whatever term is approved. So this is 2025. If a 15-year term is approved, then it would be, what is that, 2035? Thank you. And, I think Terry has a good point. There's a good track record. I was out to the site and it was very well taken care of. So I don't see any particular reason to not approve 15.
Yeah,
Okay.
Terry Atwell again. So, yeah, because if you look at Well, I'll let you close that out and then the board can talk. Sorry.
Right, okay. No, any other questions then for the applicant? Okay,
Thank you.
do we have any public comment? Anybody on Zoom, Elizabeth? Nobody on Zoom, nobody on the room commenting? Okay, now let's have a board discussion. You know,
Okay.
on the 15-year things, Craig Connell, 15-year thing, Terry, the only thing, I just put myself in the shoes of the neighbor. And, you know, if I've went in with 10 years and all of a sudden it comes out as 20 years or 15 years, as a neighbor, I guess I would just be a little upset that the fast one was pulled on me, even though it may not be any big deal. I mean, I'm okay with 15 years personally, but is it fair to the neighbors to do that without a notification?
This was not advertised
Right.
with the term listed. Just the uses were advertised, and the staff report is simply a recommendation by staff. So all of those stipulations are up for discussion and, and to be changed at the will of the zoning board. This will be your recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. So there, every conditional use permit that goes to the Board of County Commissioners has a series of 2 recommendations, one from staff and then one from the zoning board with the recommended stipulation. And this would not be anything out of the ordinary. This zoning board is free to change those stipulations at your, pleasure.
Okay, John DeGrand. We've made changes before, extended these things out in the meetings here, and have not had any blowback from anybody on it. And I think if someone was really concerned, they'd be here tonight or on Zoom. If it was even kind of I think it's I don't care. So I don't know, that's my take on that.
Yeah, Terry Atwell again. Yeah, I was going to mention that, yeah, when those notices go out, the terms aren't on there. It's just that there is a conditional use permit that's being applied for. And like I said, she's got a track record. She's been in business for 8. She got a 10-year last time, so she's cutting that 5 years short, which is why I don't mind going the 20. If an issue ever arose with one of the neighbors and she was doing something that she shouldn't be doing, planning can instantly go in and revoke that conditional use permit. But just from what I have seen from the applicant tonight, seeing her place, I mean, I just really don't think that there's going to be an issue. And I agree with John, if somebody had an issue with her with all of the notifications from around there, not one of them has come tonight to speak up. They didn't write a letter. They haven't ever had a complaint in the last 8 years. I mean, I'm really, if I make the motion, I'm going to make it for 20. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, any other comments from the board? I guess I'd rather see a 15-year personally, but rather than 20-year, but who wants to make the motion there?
Should we amend the length of it before we move on it? Or is that necessary?
No, we amend
Yeah.
it when we make the motion, I believe.
Yeah, it's Sean Penley, planning staff. That's certainly something you could do. You could make that amendment as part of your motion to approve. You could make the whatever term length you want. You could amend the suggested motion. Really, that's just suggested motion. You could amend it however.
Question for you, Terry. The discussion here amongst us 4 is that I think we would like to see the 15 as a 10-year extension to their existing 5 left. If you're strong on that 20, then you go ahead and make that.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm saying 20 is because she was going to go till 2030 anyway. So if we extended it out to 20, you're really only giving her, you know, an additional 10 years because she's still, I mean, she's already been in it 8. But I mean, if you guys want 15, go 15. I mean, I just feel like we need to go more. It is expensive for her to apply for that, and then you see it takes up our time, and um, with not having any complaints at all. But um, if John wants 15 and the 4 of you want 15, then somebody make it for 15. I just don't want to keep it at 10.
This is Craig Connell. So Terry, as I understand it though from Karen, it isn't like adding 15 years to this one. It's just 15 years from today or whenever it gets
Right.
approved by the BOCC. So it's
Yes.
really
Right.
going to be go 2040.
Right.
Right, but she's already been in it. If she didn't come in to apply, she'd go to 2030. So,
Right.
she's got a great track record, and I'm going to base it on her great track record, and I'm not going to punish her for that to make her spend the money. It's expensive to do a conditional use permit. It takes up time from the planning staff. You look at that packet, and like I say, there are provisions, and nobody has made one complaint. So, but if you guys want to go 15, go 15. It's better than the 10, but I would like to see 20.
Mr. Roger Spears, I move to approve amendments to the existing conditional use permits for a term of 15 years to allow the keeping of 2 servals, which are exotic animals, and to allow a private kennel for up to 2 dogs and 20 cats on the subject property for the reasons and subject to the stipulations recommended by staff.
John DeGrand, I'll second.
A roll call vote, please.
Terry Atwell,
Aye.
Craig Connell,
Aye.
John DeGrand,
Aye.
Donna Getzman,
Aye.
Bob Paulson,
Aye.
and Roger Spears.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes as stipulated.
Thank you. This application will be considered by the Board of County Commissioners Thursday, March 27th at 9:30 a.m. in the board hearing room, which is this room at 111 South Cherry Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there other business, Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean Penley, planning staff. The announcements I wanted to make was that you will be receiving an email here probably tomorrow. All of the boards will be receiving an email regarding an update for board applications. As part of our code of ethics that were adopted by the board last year, it is required that all board members submit a new application annually. So those applications are due by April 30th. And so we'll send out an update on that, and we will provide a copy of a fillable form for the application along with a copy of your code of ethics. You are also welcome. We have hard copies here this evening if you would like. For those members that are here in person tonight, you could fill out an application tonight if you like, or simply fill out after you receive it through email and return it at the next meeting. I believe we have a meeting next month. We have an application scheduled for that next meeting, but certainly bring it back at any time. The other announcement I wanted to make was that we have, you've probably noticed with the packet and as we mentioned in our last email, packets, we are going forward, we will be sending out the packets by email only and posting the packets online. So we will no longer be mailing hard copies of the packets, which unfortunately I know some of the board members in the past really appreciate receiving the hard copy in advance of the meeting. The problem is we're having with mail delivery, this is becoming a trend going forward, and I think it's not going to change anytime soon. So of course, with weather delays, they've been delayed often. There's no way we can get a packet out in 1 week and have it arrive to all the board members before the meeting. So we will be going to digital only going forward. We will have hard copies available at the meeting. So we'll still provide those hard copies for you here at the meeting. And you are welcome to stop in our office anytime and pick up a copy of the packet before the meeting. We'll have the packets are usually done 1 week prior to the meeting. We'll post them online and send out an email. So those were the announcements. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No other business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Roger Spears, second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Adjourned.